Hello, Jordan. Welcome from Australia. Saturday morning there, Friday afternoon here. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with you.
Amy, likewise, it's a joy to be on here. And it's really the only time you get to communicate to the future is when you jump on a call with someone on this side of the world. So 15 hours into the future,
Yeah,
Saturday's going
here we
good.
are. We're transporting time. Yeah. Amazing. Well, we first connected. I just looked back in our messages. We connected on social media 2018, end of 2018, and I've been feeling inspired to continue bringing on more male guests and male voices onto this podcast, even though it's called the Feminine Frequency Podcast. I feel like it is really important for women to be able to experience more conscious men and men who are doing the work. And I know that you're also a coach yourself and a teacher. And I'm just really looking forward to sharing more about you and your story and showing women that there are men who are doing the work, and consciousness is not just limited to, certain types of people, or whether you're male or female. I think it really is an energy that we're all tapping into together.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel the uprising. There are so many amazing women doing the work, and men, I feel we're lagging behind just a little bit. But the more I'm stepping into this role, I'm seeing the men show up, like they're here. They're just like hidden in different places. But yeah, they're out there. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. I know that women do feel that way, or a lot of women who have been awakening. And I think with women, there is an attunement to intuition, or even like a little bit more openness. For example, like for women, if we have something that's bothering us or something that's like not working for us, we can't like compartmentalize it. We can't just be like, oh, well, that relationship thing or that health thing or that career thing, like we'll just push it aside. Whereas men have the ability to compartmentalize, and most men don't go to the doctor until something's like seriously wrong, right? Or they'll like delay actually making the change until there's something that's like so painful they can't actually avoid it. So I'm curious to know, in this realm of the awakening and around consciousness, like what you're seeing with men, and why you feel like they might be a little bit behind. I don't know if we could even say behind schedule. I think it's probably all perfect, but share a little bit more in
Mm,
that.
yeah, yeah, it's been an interesting observation, more so for myself as I've gone through this process of, I guess, starting to take more ownership of, firstly, the feminine side of my energy. And as I did that, I realized there was an opportunity to start to take more ownership of my masculine energy in a conscious way. And to give a bit of context, what I like, my upbringing out here in Australia was my feelings very suppressed growing up. Found myself in environments where it was like heavily left brain. I was an accountant for a number of years, studied business, played semi-pro soccer. So I was just in environments where like I never felt safe in my emotions. And it's just, as a man, not cool to like talk about feelings. So the beginning of my process was rediscovering that side of me, rediscovering a connection to my heart, releasing a lot of trapped emotions in my solar plexus just through suppressed shame growing up. And as I started to like embody more of that, I noticed how powerful that was. I started to be around a lot of women. I moved out to Canada. I was like, being in this energy of like flow and, feminine energy. And then now that I've come back to Australia, I'm realizing my role now is to support more of the conscious masculine coming up. And what I've noticed is a lot of men who begin this journey, who start to awaken, who start to integrate more of their feminine, what can often happen is they can get a little bit soft, and especially around relationships. And I've been in a relationship for 5 years now, and my partner and I have gone through a lot of growth together. But more so, what the relationships allowed me to discover about myself around communication, my boundaries, what I'm not willing to compromise, and really holding space as a man, right, for other women, and that requires presence. It requires like a conscious connection with yourself, your body, your balls, right? Like being
Mhm.
in your body all the time. But then being able to be concise, communicate clearly, no more like, giving our power away through saying things and not meaning it. So what I've observed in other men is like that process begins for a lot of men rediscovering their emotions, reconnecting back with like, hey, what feels good in your body? Like, what do you want to express? Like, what have you suppressed for years that's cutting you off from really accessing your true purpose, your true passion? Because for me, what I notice is a lot of men, we have a lot of suppressed anger. This is out here in Australia. I'm sure it's the same elsewhere in the world, but Australia, it's suppressed anger through shame growing up, passed down from generations. That suppressed anger then starts to cut us off from really accessing the male energy, which is like passion, testosterone, power in a healthy way. And then that suppression then also affects the women that they spend time with. So I would say the integration of that has been a big, big part of my journey. And I feel like it's going to be a big part of other men. And that is how we're going to regain our power. And that's how we're going to be better support, better leaders for the women to just flourish, to fly.
Mm.
That's what I'm noticing right now anyway, just in my process and being back in Australia and working with other men and seeing other men on their journey.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for sharing about your evolution with that. And I see that with women as well when they're in this like hyper masculine, almost this toxic masculine mode of productivity, success, ego driven. And then we start to work on integrating more of the feminine. And sometimes they go all the way to the other end of the spectrum where it's like this hyper feminine because it's the first time where their emotions are coming out and where they're feeling connected to themselves. And then like you said, there is the integration, and I've definitely seen this in the conscious communities that I'm in with men. Is sometimes they like get stuck in that more feminine energy or that feminine essence. And I think when we first connected, you were still living in Toronto, and you're probably going through that part of your journey. But yeah, I think that we all have our own journey to bringing more of the feminine out and then integrating it, because we do need both. And especially I love your description of as the masculine in relationship with women is being a safe space for them to share, and also still having your boundaries and having your no and speaking your truth versus just kind of becoming the best friend or this
Mm.
just not having that groundedness like you were talking about. So I love that evolution. So you went from being a accountant to then now teaching about meditation and mindfulness and purpose. So walk us through a little bit of that journey. When did you first know that you were unhappy in accounting? Like tell us about that transition from following the path that probably was what you thought would be successful and what would make you happy to evolving into who you are today.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I resonated with what you just said there too. But for me, it was, I guess, following the path that was laid out to me by parents and society, which was the conditioning that my parents, I love them, no fault of their own. The conditioning they gave me was success is security. Success is earn money, is get a good job. So I was like, okay, cool, go to university. I had a passion for health growing up, but my mind was like, no, we need security, we need to make money. So there's no money in studying health. Let's study business and finance. So went through university, grinded my way through uni, never came easy to me. Never came easy to me learning this stuff. I don't think it ever does when you're learning something you're not passionate about. But for me, numbers and finance was like, I worked hard to learn that stuff because it just didn't come naturally. Graduated out of university, and I would say I was blessed to get a job at the biggest and best financial service firm. Like it was Deloitte. It was a dream job out of uni. I was so blessed to get that graduate role. And it was sort of like on paper, like my path, my life was on track. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're killing it, man. Well done. You're at Deloitte. That's amazing. You're set." That's what people were saying to me. You're set. You're good. So started that role. And when you start working at these big four firms, you begin your chartered accountant course, which is a 3 year of extra study where you go even deeper into tax and all this other exciting stuff. But they say once you get that CA done, you're good. Like you're guaranteed 200K salary minimum. You can travel anywhere in the world and work at accounting firms. And when I started working, I remember this feeling of like starting the 9 to 5, putting the suit on. I was like, oh, this is fun. I get to wear a suit every day. And all the things that you kind of look up to as a young kid trying to become a successful businessman. And it started, and I just had this feeling of like emptiness. I was coming home at the end of the day going, fuck man, I don't want to do, this something doesn't feel right here. I'm not feeling inspired by any of this. I was looking at the people ahead of me, the partners, the managers, and none of them looked really happy. Like none of them looked like inspired to go to work. So I remember that lit something inside of me. It lit like a drive to want to find what is my purpose? Like it ain't this. I know it's not this, but what is it? I didn't know what it was. And the reason I didn't know what it was because I was so disconnected from myself. I was in my head, just living life through like all this conditioning in my head around this is what success is. This is how you're meant to live life. So that sparked the journey of just going inward. And for me, it was yoga was the first outlet. Yoga was the path back in for me. Started to go to yoga for 4 times a week. It was just something that gave me a sense of space and clarity in my life. And for the first time, I started to access something beyond my mind, something from my heart, something unique. And as I continued that process for a number of months, it started to get clearer and clearer and clearer. It's like my heart just wanted to travel. My heart wanted to explore and just go out and explore more of life. So there came a day where I knew I was ready. I was like, you know what, it's time to leave. I don't know what I'm going to do for work, but my heart's pulling me out to Toronto. I want to go back to Canada. I'd done exchange there. So I just quit my job, moved out there. And my girlfriend at the time was living in Toronto, moved out there with her and thought, hey, I'm going to go with where my heart takes me because it just feels right and I'm ready and I want to explore. Spent 2.5 years in Canada, worked at a meditation studio, worked at a healing clinic, got to be around some amazing people who taught me so much. Like it was the most exponential growth I'd ever experienced in my life by just taking a risk, living life on the edge, on the unknown, and just following the calling, following the expansiveness. Amy, it completely transformed me. That trip, like, just transformed my life. And here I am now, a coach. I've been a coach for 12 months and never could have predicted this. This is just something that just evolved as I decided to now follow my heart and not my head. So that's the short end of it. But yeah, I would say it was an awakening that being in the corporate world gave me that I needed.
Yeah, so powerful. It's interesting because I've heard other stories where people like do all this studying and they finally get to the career that or like into the actual job itself and then they're there and they're like, "Wait, this is it? Like I thought I
Yeah.
would feel different. I thought I would feel more fulfilled. I thought I would feel excited about this." And that feeling of emptiness, I think that so many people can relate to, yet most people don't do anything about it or they struggle to do something about it. So how long do you feel like you're in that place of indecisiveness? Like, am I going to leave my job? Like, how long were you in that inquiry with yourself before you actually decided to make the call?
Yeah, it was a good few months of like heavy resistance to just my life. It's like,
Mhm.
this fucking sucks. I hate this. No,
Mm.
I don't like, I don't align with the people I work. I don't like the work that I do. I just hated everything about it. And it was, and that's when for me, Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth was impacted me so much because the section on purpose in that book where he spoke about primary purpose and secondary purpose. Your primary purpose is the same. We all share the same purpose, which is to bring acceptance to this current situation, our present moment, to be fully present here. And I looked at my current situation. It's like, I'm not accepting this. I'm in resistance to this. So my first step in my journey was to accept, okay, this is where I'm right now. I manifested this life based on the consciousness I had in the past. And this is actually perfect right now. I'm here to learn a very specific set of lessons right now before I can move on to the next chapter. So how can I receive these lessons? What are all the people that are triggering me? What are the things that are triggering me that I can look at as shining the light on something down here that I've ignored? So that shift allowed me to go through massive growth in my corporate job to the point where I was so content. I was so happy with working at Deloitte. I was like, yo, this is dope. I get to work with my friends. I got like a cruisy job. Like it was to the point where I was like, I could have easily stayed. I was very happy. That's when I knew it was time to leave. That's when I knew the growth was done. I was like, okay, it's time. I've got my lessons. It's time to leave. So yeah, I ended up being at the job for 16 months in total.
Mhm.
So the last 6 months was like, I loved it.
Yeah, I think that process that you went through, and obviously, I feel like the book that you read A New Earth at the time that you read it was obviously guided to you to have that message. And went through a very similar process for myself before I left my marriage and before I got divorced. Of, a lot of people think, okay, I'll just run from this, I'll just go to the next thing. But I really feel like we have to get complete with the lessons and get clear on like taking ownership for our part and our awareness in order to leave from that place of pure gratitude, of pure acceptance, of pure love for the experience, for where we're going, for the people, and not leave from that place of like bitterness and resentment. And most people hang on until it gets so bad that they don't have a choice to leave, or there's like a world pandemic and then they're like, oh shit, I hate my job, I've hated it for so long, I have to change my job. So I love that you did that inner process. And I think for anyone who's struggling in their journey with their purpose, or you're in a job that you hate or a relationship that isn't serving you, like going through that process of acceptance, I think is so powerful. So thank you for sharing about that. And I did have one more question about, like, did you have fear of what other people were going to think, like your parents? Did you have fear around judgment? Like, what was that process like for you, really taking that leap to follow your heart?
Yeah, for a long time there was a lot of fear because I I had suppressed, like I was a very shy person. I actually feel like that's why I ended up becoming an accountant, because to me accountants are like the ultimate. And there's nothing against accountants. Like some people love accounting if that's your passion. Oh, great, amazing, no judgment. But what I noticed, accountants are like people who have suppressed their greatness, and it's like you're working a job where there's no expression. You're just like hiding because you don't like being seen by too many people. And that's what I noticed inside of me. So the fear was coming from that. It was the fear that there was a part of me that didn't feel good enough to really step up and own his life and just express himself and be himself. So he just like studied business and accounting and wanted to like live his cruisy life. So that process of like leaning into the fear, telling more people, hey, I go to yoga every week, or I meditate, or I'm trying to tune into like what my purpose is. That was so scary to just tell people that. I was so embarrassed. And I remember like telling my dad that I was leaving Deloitte. And I remember like what he said to me is like, you're an idiot. He's like,
Mm,
what are you doing? Why, are you stupid? I was like, Dad, just trust me. This is the path I'm going. I know you don't approve of it, but this is what I'm doing. He literally said I'm a fucking idiot. He
mm,
was so angry at me. But yeah, I was at the place where I knew he wasn't going to approve, but I was so content within myself that I knew I just had to make the call. So a lot of people thought I was completely insane for throwing that opportunity away.
mhm.
But to me, it was like, no, I can't play small any longer. This is my calling. And yeah, now dad's in full support. He's proud of me. So
He's
you
watching all
have
your
to just
YouTube videos, listening to the podcast, maybe
engaging with the
not, but
content. Yeah. It
yeah.
seriously does. That's the thing. That's why it's so beautiful. It's like your parents will, or your friends, or your family will always support you if you just do what it is that lights you up. People
Mhm,
just want to see your true fullest expression.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
there is fear. There is fear to overcome, but it's on the other side of it is it's just everything. It's like everything we want is on the other side.
Mhm. Yeah. The light always wins. And even if people don't understand, and initially there's actually there's so much research and like the understanding of the psychology of group psychology, of like why people don't want you to change, and it makes them feel so safe if you follow what they think is right for you and who you've always been. And it's actually threatening to them and their identity if you follow your own path that's not how they see you. So it is interesting how much resistance can happen at first. And also, like you said, at least in my experience, I've had even more respect and even more support from my family because I've followed my truth. Like people really admire that. And most people don't end up doing that. So good on you.
Thank you. Well, it's
Yeah.
out here, just on that side, that point you made. Out here in Australia, there's a term called tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of that,
Mm-mm.
but it's actually a thing out here, like where, you know, the idea is when a poppy grows taller than all the other poppies, people want to chop it down. And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of what happens in Australia. I don't know what it is. It's based on some of like our conditioning from the past, but whenever someone like starts to like rise above everyone else and starts to stand out, people put you down. There's a lot of judgment that comes out here in Australia just around someone who's like steps up or breaks free from the old way or the old path. And it's a common thing. So if any Aussies are listening to that, I'm sure they'll relate. And that's why it does take a little bit of extra, just tuning out to other people's opinions, go on your path and just trusting, like, people ain't going to improve, or your
Mhm.
friends might be like, fuck, this is what's he doing? Jordan going to meditation now, fucking sharing content on social media. Look at this idiot. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's cool. If for initially it is a little bit uncomfortable creating that new identity, but that's like, that's where the growth is. That's where the
Mhm.
growth is, leaning into that, facing it. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't know that that was a
Yeah.
term. And I come from a more South African background. My parents are both South African. I don't think my listeners know that. So you guys, here's a new
Wow.
tip about
Yeah.
me.
Cool.
But it is interesting how our cultures play in. I mean, I see this in a lot of international cultures, Asian cultures, Indian cultures. Like, there's such a strong it comes from this like value system, and it's really beautiful because it does create community, and there's shared values, but it's like the mindset of what's right and what's wrong. And we see this in religion, that like religious programming and culture programming. And what we're talking about is like this collective mindset of the way that things should be, and if you're not doing them the way that the people think it should be, then in their opinion you're doing it wrong. And it's almost
Mm.
like it's really uncomfortable for them because they don't get it. So it takes a lot of courage. And I'd love to talk about your current spiritual practices, your meditation practice. What are some of the things that you do now to really connect and strengthen like that inner knowing and your connection to yourself?
Yeah. When I share my practice with people, I always say, like, don't think that you have to follow this as well, because I've taken it I'm treating it like the way I treated playing sport and playing at a high level in sport. I've actually realized life is exactly the same. It's your standards that you keep for yourself really dictates your level of performance in life, and the same as in sport. And I've actually realized, well, so have you. We've realized that our performance in life, or how well we're able to enjoy and feel life, is directly correlated to how well we prioritize ourselves. So for me, my practices and my habits now are always prioritized around my energy and my connection with myself and my higher power, which is life or consciousness, God, the universe. So I treat it it's very strict, and my standards now have gotten really high around that, because I realized my coaching, my content, my relationships are all defined by how much capacity I can bring, how much energy I can bring. So for me, it's like, I use, at the moment, I'm going through a bit of an expansion phase. I can feel it, my energy. So I'm waking up quite early, like 5 a.m. I won't take any calls before 9 a.m. So that gives me like 4 hours in the morning to just like meditate, do qigong, move the body. I might do some exercise, and I live right on the beach here, so I'll go for a swim at the beach as well. But yeah, I'll meditate usually for sometimes a couple of hours a day, depending on what I feel. I love breath work, so I do a lot of breath work as well. I find my favorite combination in the morning is movement with some breath work, some meditation, and then something cold. And
Mhm.
I really my energy is really primed after that. And Qigong has been a big part of my life for probably the last 6 months, and I've been doing that every day. It's just the perfect thing to do when you first wake up. So yeah, that's been the core of my morning routine at the moment.
Wow,
I'm sure you have something
two hours,
similar.
2 hours a day. That's impressive. I love that with meditation. And yeah, I couldn't agree more that not everyone has access to, let's say, the longest morning routine ever, or maybe not have access to the amount of time, but really like creating that is what I believe has created my success. Like my morning practices, getting into energy alignment, staying in energy alignment, staying connected to myself. It's like either we are intentionally creating the state that we want to be in, or we are operating from the default of fear, of laziness, of low energy, of dis-ease or imbalance in our health. So this choice that you make every day to, if you are just starting with a morning practice, like just getting started with something, even if it's 10 minutes of meditation, but really committing to those practices has been exactly what has transformed my life as well. So I know that we we share that and our passions for the importance of prioritizing your daily practices.
What about your practice? What is your
Mhm.
routine looking like at the moment? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so I usually wake up between like 6 and 6:30. And I like to start with some breath work first and then go into meditation and then do some movement. So that's my practice right now. I find that I've been meditating for the last like 3+ years. And I've recently found that incorporating more breath work in is really supportive. And I also really like to intuitively feel into what I need for that day. So sometimes it is movement, sometimes it is dance or like more embodiment practices. Sometimes it's being out in nature is what I'm craving. So my morning practice really, however, the core component of it is always meditation of some sort, and kind of like having some type of movement, meditation, and breath is really important to me. And then sometimes we'll throw in, I do some journaling, pulling an oracle card, really whatever I want to have, reading an inspiring book. Just depends on what I'm feeling called to.
Yeah, I love what you said about the intuitive element to it, because that's key, right? And it's one of the mistakes that not a mistake. It was just a misconception that I had in the past, probably coming from the unhealthy masculine, was
Hmm.
the rigidity that I used to keep in my routines, in my schedule. It's like, no, no, no. I said I was going to meditate at 6. It's got to happen every single day. Or I got to work out at 6 a.m. I got to crush a heavy workout. But what I've started to notice with the intuition is like some days my body doesn't want to sit in meditation for an hour. Maybe it wants to go out and be in nature. Or maybe my body doesn't want to work really hard at the gym today. Maybe it wants to just go to a yoga class or just do something light. So that was key for me. I feel like having time blocked out in the morning without it being too regimented, just making sure it's time blocked out and you feeling into what can I give myself today that's going to support my energy. So
Hmm.
that was a massive shift for me. Sounds like you're living by that too.
Yeah, I love that approach because otherwise you can become resentful towards your practices, or they can just become another thing on the to-do list that you're checking off,
Exactly.
and you might
Yeah.
not feel super connected to them because they're not aligned for you on that day. And again, we're emphasizing that you create space and time to connect with yourself and to do practices that feel good for you, and then choosing which ones feel best for you, I think is what the methodology that we're recommending.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like a toolkit. You just pull them from your toolkit of practices. Okay, what do I need today?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Are there any favorite books that you've read lately, that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh, books, mate. I love books and just like absorbing information. I feel like that was the big part of my journey when I started was I absorbed everything, read so many books. And now find myself going back to books, like rereading, re-listening, because there's different insights or breakthroughs or understandings you can get further along in the journey, as you know. I would say of recently, a book I've gone back and re-listened to, and I'm currently about to finish re-listening to it, is The Surrender Experiment by
Mhm.
Michael Singer. Something about that book, there's something about him and his approach that just, I don't know, just I resonate. And I'm sure a lot of other people have read that book. It's a beautiful story of how he's chosen to live his life, surrendering to his preferences and just trusting the flow of where life's taking him. And it's a phenomenal story that comes out of it. The other book that I I'll give just a recommendation for anyone who wants a book recommendation. I've listened to this book 6 or 7 times. It's called Letting Go by David Hawkins. I've recommended it to all my clients. It's just a book that, I had so many breakthroughs when I read it, and it just like was a light bulb after light bulb. So if you're looking for a good book to support you and just understanding the process of letting go of emotions and how simple it really is, it is very simple life. We make it very complicated, but it's not easy. Simple, but it's not easy.
Mhm.
And I think that book helped me understand that. So yeah, I won't give too many recommendations, but they're the two right now that I'm kind of. It's always on my forefront of my mind.
Yeah, I actually have the book Letting Go. I haven't read it yet, so it's on my
Oh,
bookshelf. I'll definitely pick
mate,
that one up.
yeah, the audio is
Yeah,
great as well.
Cool. Yeah, I just finished reading a book called The Quantum Warrior, and it's
Mm,
really cool. It's by an author, John Kehoe, I believe, and it is about like your relationship with with the quantum field and using how like showing the science behind how consciousness and our thoughts and our awareness impact our reality. And I just thought it was really well written, especially for like a quantum book. Sometimes those can get really intense, and I thought it was really well written. So I love that book. There's another book that I'm reading, a book called Happy Pocket Full of Money. Have you heard of that one?
no, I haven't heard of both of these. So this month, add these to the list. They sound interesting.
Yeah, Happy Pocket Full of Money. It took me a little bit to get into it. He went really hard on the quantum stuff first, and then I was like, all right, let's like get into stuff that you can actually use. Like I like hearing about the science, but I also like to be able to integrate it. And
For
it's just a
sure.
cool book around wealth consciousness that I think is really powerful.
Oh, we could all use a bit of that, can't we? Hey,
Hmm.
I'm curious to get your opinion on this because, for a long time, like I said, I was just like reading so many books, taking a lot of information, and then recently, I'm trying to really balance like just not letting information come in and
Hmm.
like connecting with my own information, my own transmission or expression.
Hmm.
And having information come in is great, but if it's too much, you catch yourself like, you know, adopting other people's perspectives and living by, oh no, that's how I should live life. Oh, maybe that's the right way to go. Maybe that person is the approach that I should take. And I found that sometimes I'll stop reading for a little bit. I just like won't listen to anything in the mornings and just go for walks and just walk mindfully. And
Hmm.
I'm finding that to be useful, but at the same time, I love learning. So it's like finding this like balance between connecting with yourself, but at the same time, always taking in new information, learning. How do you manage that?
Yeah.
How are you finding that?
Yeah, I love that you brought that to the conversation because I talk a lot about this with the women in my mastermind and also in my programs that like if we are consuming too much and we're not creating enough, there becomes this imbalance of feeling overwhelmed, of feeling blocked creatively, and we are in such huge sensory overload and information overload in the world right now that like it's not always more beneficial to take the next course, to read the next book, to listen to the next podcast. And I, very similarly to you, when I first started in the personal development world for years, I was reading like crazy. I was listening to all these different podcasts. And I definitely came to that space of like, I don't really listen to podcasts that much anymore. Every once in a while, I will. And I know what my favorite podcasts are, and I can always go back to those episodes. I did take a break from reading as well. Just honestly, like, it felt like my brain was like rejecting. I didn't even want to read personal development books last year a lot. It just kind of felt like a lot of the same. And I think it is so important for us to take space when we feel like we need it. And I don't know that there is a perfect balance. I think it's really feeling into like where you're at in your development. What do you feel drawn to? Like, do you feel drawn to a certain book? Awesome. Like, go for it. Do you feel drawn to taking space to go inwards? Great. And I think that it will evolve and change depending on what phase of your evolution that you're in. But I really noticed this specifically with business coaching. And it's something that I've taken a step back from, even just for the next 6 months. Is I had worked with probably like 5 or 6 different coaches over the last 2.5 years and taking in a lot of information, learning about business, learning about how the coaching industry. And eventually I kind of hit that point where I was like, okay, I've taken in so much information. Now I want to continue to like bring my essence into it, make it my own, discover like be in discernment of what do I believe in? What do I subscribe to? What resonates with me instead of just like following what they're telling you. Right.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm very much in that space right now. And I feel like I'm really grateful for all of the information I have. But at some point we do get to make it our own and integrate it. And that's where I feel like, leadership comes in, self-leadership, where it's like, yes, we can have teachers and the teach at different points in our life, teachers are really supportive, but that's where I really love like taking it and making it your own and infusing your own essence into it. And then you're creating something that no one else has really created because it's all you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
so resonate with that. Yeah,
Hmm.
especially with the coaching part too. Like,
Hmm.
I was in the same boat recently, like came to an end of my time with one of my coaches, and my mind was like, oh, I've got to hire another coach. So who am I going to hire? And I was like, well, I'm just going to hold it for a bit. I'm just going to like keep some space. And what I've noticed in my life is I've never actually had to go out and look for the next coach. When the
Mm-hmm.
time's right, the right coach shows up, and it's just a no brainer. I just, oh, yep, cool. This is who I'm going to work with next.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like letting go of that idea. It's like, you don't need to rush out and always be looking to hire another coach. You'll know when the next step is. And it's funny how life always has us. It's always, life
Mm-hmm.
has taken us exactly where we need to go. And like back to the surrender of the mind, surrender of trying to figure it all out. You just trust the journey, trust the
Mm-hmm.
path you're on, and trust your expression, trust like your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of my process recently as well, is just like trusting that, like, hey, I know I don't need a coach to tell me what my truth is or what my path is. They can give you like guide points or show you what worked for them, but ultimately it's your truth is unique. Our path
Mm-hmm.
is unique. So thanks for that share, because I resonate with that too.
Yeah, I love how parallel our paths are in so many ways. I feel like I had that similar where my mind had to detach from the idea of needing another business coach specifically and giving myself space. And yeah, I'm excited because, now it's created space for me to invest in. I'm doing an embodiment certification this year, and I'm really excited to continue to like focus on excelling in my craft and to add more value for my clients. And I am actually working with like a leadership and a mindset coach to really step into my next level of leadership, which will all of that will translate into amazing things in my business. And it's just a different route. It's what feels most resonant for me right now.
Oh yes, I feel
Hmm.
that too. Feel that
Yeah.
too. My recent investment was a male dance course where we're doing male sexual dancing and how to embody our male sexual energy. And it's a strip dancing course. And it was so fucking scary for me to sign up for that. But I actually realized that, hey, that's the next level for me. That's me
Mm,
becoming a larger vessel to hold more of life energy. Because I realized, like, for most men, like, we're cut off at our hips, we can't move properly. So for me, that investment is going to open me up to be such a more powerful coach and leader for other people, because then I can hold more energy. I've got more to give, to offer.
hmm.
So yeah, like just like little ways in which you can invest in yourself. They don't necessarily have to be coaches.
Hmm.
Anything that's going to support you in expanding. That's really the simplified version of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that you're doing that and that it's an edge for you because
Yeah,
I think that
big
we
time
all we all
edge.
get to meet our edges. But yeah,
Yeah.
even just that energetically, that feels like it's going to provide so much. So yeah, amazing. So
Mm.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about your coaching practice, what you have coming up, anything that you want to share about your work right now.
Yeah, I recently launched a program called Build a Stronger Relationship with Yourself. And the reason I decided to do that was because I've noticed after doing coaching full time now for the last 15 months and coaching a lot of people, but more so going deeper within myself, I'm continually reminded that the quality of our life and the quality of everything we experience in our life is directly connected to the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves. So for a lot of people, relationships is always at the forefront. Like, where am I going to find the next person? How am I going to find the one? It's like, well, find yourself first. Go deeper within yourself. Like, your relationships are a direct reflection of how deep you've gone on the inside. So I decided to kind of like build this program around strengthening that relationship with yourself. And the core pillars that I have extracted are, self-awareness, self-responsibility, self-love, self-trust, self-accountability, and self-discipline. And I've seen all those areas in my life be amplified and strengthened. And as I do that, it's like you connect more with life, you connect more with yourself, and then everything around you changes. Everything you want gets built around that. So I wanted to create a container where people could start to go deeper within themselves and really discover themselves more. So that's really that's my primary focus right now, is supporting that group that's just started. And yeah, my one-to-one practice is just where, for people who want to go that next level deeper, they want more accountability, more support. Yeah, I do the one-to-one coaching as well. But it's all been in flow, Amy. It's like things are flowing for me, and I've learned so much through being full-time coach now. And I'm sure we've all made similar mistakes. Last year I took on too many people, and I realized my energy was just getting drained. I was just trying to do too much. And I was like, my energy is primary. Protecting my peace is number one. And now I'm a lot more selective with who I choose to work with and how many people I want to work with at one time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm in a good flow at the moment. But yeah, just trusting that where I'm going is exactly where I need to be. But yeah, the relationship with yourself, that's always primary. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Amazing.
the
I'm so
program.
happy that you decided to hone in on that and that people are getting to learn from you, and those different pillars sound really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
if anyone wants to learn more about it, just hit me up on Instagram at
Cool.
State Shifters.
State shifters. Yeah. So if they want to find you, Instagram, anywhere else that you want them to come find you?
Or check out the website. My girlfriend just designed my website for me recently. It looks really good. I'm quite happy with it. It's stateshifters.com. That's
Cool.
another
We'll
place to
check that
find me.
out.
Mm.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. It is awesome to have a male guest on the show. I think it brings a lot of value. So thank you for being here. And everyone can come check out your work. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Thanks, Amy. It's been a pleasure.